Her daughter typed, "Why is she still alive?" then hit send. Martha Lane, retired school secretary and widow, didn't blink. Dina, the child she'd once carried through a Memphis thunderstorm for a tetanus shot, had now written her off like expired mail. By Monday the family group chat would burn. By Wednesday the locks would change, and by Sunday Martha would sit on a church bench named for her, while Dina faced a courtroom, a cease and desist, and a door she could no longer enter. Martha had been quiet her whole life, but when betrayal knocked, she answered with documents, and this time she signed every page herself. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The kettle whistled like it always did, sharper than it should, high-pitched and needy. Martha Lane moved slow but sure, wrapping her old fingers around the ceramic handle, pouring hot water over peppermint leaves in a chipped mug that still bore her husband's name in faded gold script. Her joints ached, her knees threatened rebellion every morning, but she moved with the stubborn grace of someone who'd earned every line in her skin. She placed the mug on the windowsill, where the sunlight hit just right this time of day. The hydrangeas out front were blooming again. No one else in the family noticed the cycle. She did. Her thumb tapped gently across her phone screen as she texted Lisa, "You still bringing those rolls on Sunday, baby?" The little dots popped up, then disappeared, then popped up again. Her phone vibrated. She assumed it was Lisa. Instead it was Dina. And one message. One damn message. 13 words. Why is she still alive? This would all be easier. For a moment everything in the kitchen held its breath. The steam from the mug rose in spirals, the fridge motor hummed faintly behind her, and even the birds outside seemed to hush. Martha didn't blink. Her eyes scanned the words again. Not a typo. Not meant for someone else named Mom. No emoji to soften it, just raw malice. Delivered direct. Her hand didn't shake as she tapped the screenshot button. Once, then again. Double evidence. She saved them both to a folder labeled Keep. She stood still. No tears came. No gasp. No hand to the chest like in the movies. Instead, Martha took a slow sip of her tea, eyes fixed on the message. The peppermint burned a little on the way down, grounding her, reminding her she was here. She existed. Alive, yes, but no longer naive. The hallway clock ticked out the silence. Tick, 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 like counting down to something she hadn't prepared for, but perhaps had always expected. Martha walked to the living room, each step deliberate, heel first like her late husband always insisted. The carpet was soft beneath her feet, worn down in the path her body had memorized. She sat in the same recliner James used to nap in during Sunday football, folded her robe tight across her chest, and unlocked her phone again. She read the message one more time. Why is she still alive? This would all be easier. No follow-up. No apology. Not even a delete attempt. Martha clicked forward. She didn't hesitate. One by one she selected every contact in the Lane family group, then the entire church leadership board. Then finally she added Marlon Fields, attorney. Her finger hovered for just a second, not from doubt, but from precision. She wanted this to land exactly where it needed to. With a final press, the message was sent. No explanation, no caption, no added punctuation. Just her daughter's digital venom, delivered with surgical exposure. She leaned back in the recliner, her eyes half closed. Outside, the mail truck passed. A neighbor's screen door slammed. Inside, Martha Lane sat in the eye of a brewing storm, quietly letting her tea go cold. And then her phone vibrated again. Rapid, over and over. Group chats exploding. Family names blinking in red. Calls incoming. The screen lighting up like sirens. Panic in every alert. But she didn't answer. She set the phone down next to her wedding photo. James smiled up at her, frozen in time, holding a trout they caught together in 1974. She nodded toward the picture, her voice low and sure, like she was saying it to him. She wants easier? Her hand moved back toward the phone, this time steady, almost ceremonial. Let's make it complicated. And as the calls kept coming in, one from Lisa, one from Pastor Elijah, one from an unknown number, Martha opened her gallery, scrolled through her photos, and paused on the scanned copy of something old and familiar. A will. A will no one else knew she still had. The sound hit like a swarm, buzzes, pings, and vibration rattles that shook the end table, where Martha's phone sat, still lit with flashing names. It was no longer just Dina calling. It was everybody. 3 group chats erupted at once. Family thread. What the hell is this? Tell me that's fake. Martha, are you okay? Church leadership. This can't be real. Who says that about their own mama? Pastor, we need to meet. Lane Cousins. I always knew she was cold, but damn, she meant to send that to someone else, didn't she? Martha, please say something. Martha said nothing. She sat at her kitchen table, the mug still half full and cooling beside her elbow. Her thumb hovered over the vibrating phone, not to silence it, just to watch, like a witness. Then the landline rang. She hadn't heard that sound in weeks. She let it ring once, twice. On the 3rd ring, she picked up. Miss Martha. Monique's voice came out high, frantic and breathless. Miss Martha, I just saw it. Lord, was that real? Martha didn't answer. Monique tried again. That message, was that from your daughter? A pause. Martha turned to look out the window. The hydrangeas were starting to wilt under the late heat of a Memphis spring. It was, she said quietly. Oh Jesus, Monique breathed. Pastor Elijah already called me. The board's in a spiral. And Lisa, she left class, said she's on her way to you. The line went quiet, just faint static now. Let 'em spiral, Martha said and hung up. 10 minutes later, tires screeched onto the gravel outside. Lisa didn't knock. She just opened the door and rushed in like the house was on fire. Grandma. Her voice cracked as she dropped her purse by the door and ran to the kitchen. Her cheeks were blotched red, her mascara halfway down her face. Grandma, please tell me that was a mistake. Tell me you didn't just... I did. Martha didn't look up from her tea. Lisa's lip trembled. You sent that to everyone? I did. Lisa sat down across from her, speechless for once. Her hands were balled into fists on her lap. She meant it, didn't she? She whispered. Martha finally met her granddaughter's eyes. Yes, baby, she did. A knock came this time. 3 polite raps. Lisa stood, wiping her face quickly. Pastor Elijah walked in like he'd been carrying the weight of the world all morning. His gray slacks were wrinkled, his Bible clutched in one hand, his tie crooked. Martha, he didn't take his hat off. Is it true? She didn't rise, just nodded once, slow. Pastor Elijah looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. He sank into the chair beside her and pressed his palms together in front of his mouth. That child, he muttered. I watched her grow up in these pews. Now she talks like that. Martha gave a dry chuckle. That child's 45 and bold enough to type what she always felt. The silence settled again. Only the humming of the fridge, the ticking of the clock. Then the phone buzzed on the table. Dina calling again. Ignored. Another buzz. This one an email notification. From Marlon Fields. Subject, immediate response reviewing what we discussed. Timeline moves up. You have full rights to proceed. Let's finalize. Martha read it. She didn't smile, but her eyes narrowed with the calm of a woman who'd just loaded her first arrow. She stood up, moving toward the hallway without explanation. Lisa and Pastor Elijah stayed frozen at the table, watching her disappear into the back room. A moment later, they heard the soft creak of a drawer sliding open. Martha returned, slow and steady, holding a folded document with yellowed edges and ink faded from age. James never trusted digital, she said, laying it flat on the table like a sacred offering. This is his handwriting. Lisa's eyes widened. Is that? Martha looked straight at her. The original will, not the version she talked him into after chemo started. The paper smelled faintly of cedar and thyme, folded, creased, and yellowing at the corners, but whole. Not a copy, not a scan. The original. Martha laid it out on the kitchen table like a poker hand she'd kept close to her chest for far too long. The signature at the bottom was unmistakable, James R. Lane, written in his left-leaning scrawl. The loops a little shaky but legal. Witnessed. Dated. Notarized. This one never changed, Martha said, her finger tapping the bottom right corner. He signed this the year before the diagnosis. Pastor Elijah leaned in, removing his glasses and squinting over the top of them. Lisa held her breath beside him. Is that the house? Lisa asked softly, pointing to the line underlined twice. Martha nodded. The house, the church donation fund, and the property on Foster Creek that brings in the monthly rental checks. All left to me, solely. Elijah exhaled, stunned. But I thought after the treatment started, didn't he? He was tired. Not stupid, Martha cut in. She wore him down. Yes. Talked circles around him when I wasn't in the room, but he never signed anything after this that wasn't done in front of me. What Tina had were plans. What I've got here is paper. Lisa looked away for a moment, then back again, her eyes sharper. She told everyone y'all rewrote the whole thing together. Said it was jointly planned. That's because a plan sounds cleaner than a lie, Martha said. She fed that story to anyone who'd listen, hoping I'd be too fogged up from grief or blood pressure meds to fight back. Lisa chewed her lip. Did she know you still had this? Martha's voice was even. She bet on my memory being fragile, not my filing. Pastor Elijah gave a low whistle. Lord have mercy. They all turned as the doorbell rang. Once, then again. Too long, too hard. Lisa stood first, peeking through the curtain. It's him, she said. Mr. Fields. Martha nodded. Let him in. Attorney Marlon Fields entered the Lane home like he'd walked into a courtroom. No nonsense. Clean suit despite the Memphis humidity, and a tablet already glowing in his hands. Martha. He gave her a nod of respect. You really had it. I always did, she said. He sat down, scanned the document with a pocket scanner he carried in his briefcase, then again, then pulled up a file on his device to cross-reference. The kitchen was silent except for the soft tapping of his stylus. Finally he looked up. It's valid. Not a doubt in my mind. Dated. Notarized. Filed by hand. This stamp right here, he pointed to the corner, matches the 2015 batch from Shelby County before they digitized everything. This trumps anything she's been floating. Lisa's breath hitched. Pastor Elijah leaned back in his chair, arms folded with satisfaction. Marlon continued. I'll initiate the title transfer immediately. The Foster Creek rental too. Once that's done, her name holds no legal weight here. Martha smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She'll still act like it does. I'll handle that, Marlon said. Lisa stared at the will, then at Martha. You kept it all this time. In that drawer. Some things don't belong on the cloud, Martha murmured. And then, like it was summoned by their very nerve, a shriek pierced through the front window. Lisa jumped. Pastor Elijah's eyes widened. They all turned toward the porch. Through the screen door, Tina's figure came into view, shoulders hunched, face red, hair half-tied and wild. Her fists pounded against the doorframe as she screamed loud enough for the hydrangeas to wilt. You lied. You old, you've ruined everything. You better come out here and fix this. Right now. This is my house too. I earned it. Martha didn't flinch. She simply rose, turned the lock on the front door, and left it closed. The folding chairs screeched across the polished floor like metal teeth. The church community room, usually used for baby showers and after-service potlucks, buzzed with a strange energy, tight, uneasy, like everyone was waiting for lightning to strike, but pretending they didn't see the clouds. Pastor Elijah stood at the front, hands folded tight at his waist. He wasn't wearing his robe, just a worn gray button-down and slacks, sleeves rolled. A paper Bible lay closed on the podium. He hadn't touched it all morning. Martha sat in the back row, quiet, composed. The only sound she made was the slight rustle of her purse strap when she adjusted it over her shoulder. Her eyes didn't scan the room. They stayed on the dusty cross hung on the back wall. The one James helped build when the old wooden one finally splintered. Monique stood near the refreshment table, lips pursed, stack of printouts in her hand, like she was holding a deck of evidence. No coffee had been poured. No cookies laid out. Just tension and plastic chairs. Dina sat off to the side near the front. She wore all white, an outfit too pristine, too staged for a weekday meeting. Her pearls caught the fluorescent light as she crossed her legs and forced a tight-lipped smile at no one in particular. Pastor Elijah finally cleared his throat. "Thank y'all for coming on such short notice." Murmurs of "Imian" and chair shuffles echoed in return. "This ain't easy," he began. "But some things don't ask for easy. They demand truth." He looked over at Monique. She nodded and stepped forward. "I was asked to print something," she said. Her voice sharp. She passed the stack across the front row, each leader leaning forward with furrowed brows as they took one. Gasps, wide eyes. Someone muttered, "Lord have mercy." One of the women, Marva Dean, who'd been with the church since before the new wing was built, looked up sharply. She asked if her mother was still alive. In a group text, Dina stood, pressing her hands together in mock apology. "Okay, before y'all twist this, I need to say something." She turned toward the crowd, voice practiced. "That message was meant as a joke. A private one, between me and my husband. It wasn't literal. You know how people joke when things are difficult." Nobody responded. She went on. "I love my mother, but taking care of someone elderly, anyone who's been through it knows it's hard. You get frustrated. You say things you don't mean." Monique took a step forward, arms crossed. "Then why," she said, slowly, "did you try to delete it from the group chat after you saw it was forwarded?" Dina's smile faltered. "I didn't. I saw the timestamp," Monique said. "So did 3 others." Dina looked at Pastor Elijah, grasping. "You know me, you know I'd never." Pastor Elijah held up a hand, quieting her. "Some things," he said, his voice low, calm, undebatable, "require no vote. Just clarity." The room held still. The humming of the ancient air conditioning unit suddenly seemed deafening. "The Women's Leadership Committee is built on grace, on service, on humility," Elijah continued. "When someone shows they don't value the dignity of their own blood, publicly no less, they don't belong in a position of influence." Gasps again. And then stillness. No one defended her. Dina's face flushed, her pearl earrings trembling with the sharpness of her breath. "This is ridiculous. You're all letting her manipulate you." Still silence. She snatched her purse and stormed out, the heels of her shoes clacking violently against the linoleum. Martha didn't move. She didn't blink. She just watched the door swing closed behind her daughter. Then her phone buzzed once in her lap. A quiet buzz, subtle. She checked it slowly. Email from Marlon Field. Subject: Transfer finalized. Notice of completion. You are now sole owner of the residence at 119 Parkwell Drive, Foster Creek property, and associated residuals. Martha turned the phone face down on her lap. The message didn't deserve a smile, only silence. The pen didn't shake in Martha's hand. It moved with purpose, ink flowing in one clean final stroke across the line that read "Transfer of ownership, full rights." Marlon slid the second page toward her with practiced ease. Initial here, and here. The wood-paneled office smelled faintly of old paper, lemon polish, and Marlon's cologne, something quiet and expensive, like confidence bottled. He didn't speak much as they worked through the documents. He didn't have to. The signatures were louder than any sermon. When the last sheet was signed, stamped and scanned, he set his hand flat on the stack like it was sacred. "It's done," he said. Martha nodded once. "Good." Lisa sat behind her, back straight, phone in hand. She'd been snapping pictures of receipts all morning, gas bills, water bills, dated notices, all tied to a 2-bedroom rental on Sycamore Drive. The one Dina had been living in for 4 years, rent-free. Legally it was Martha's name on the deed. Always had been. Marlon closed the folder. "You want me to handle delivery of the notice?" "No," Martha said. I want her to read it with her own eyes, in her own mailbox. Same one she forgot to forward me a birthday card from. That afternoon, Martha walked up the cracked sidewalk of Sycamore Drive, her cane tapping steadily on concrete. Lisa stayed by the car, holding a manila envelope pressed to her chest like it was ticking. Martha folded the 30-day lease termination notice neatly, slid it into the mailbox with slow precision, then taped a second copy to the front door in thick black lettering. Lease ending, 30 days. No exceptions. No drama. No doorbell. Just facts, printed and laminated. By nightfall, Dina's retaliation came in the form of a Facebook post. It was a photo, an old one, of Dina pushing Martha in a wheelchair at James's funeral, both of them in black, both crying. The caption read, Caregivers never get grace. But I gave everything, even when I was breaking, but the comments didn't land the way she hoped. Didn't you just say she should be dead? Respect starts at home. You gave nothing but cruelty, sis. We saw the receipts. The post was ratioed within the hour. Lisa sent a screenshot to Martha with a single caption, Karma's early this week. Martha didn't reply. She was busy. In the dining room, she and Lisa had spread out a decade's worth of financial documents across the table, envelopes from MLGW, old maintenance invoices, checks never deposited, all things Martha had quietly covered while Dina hosted brunches and posted about struggling to support a parent. Lisa paused while scanning an envelope. She really didn't pay a dime. Martha picked up a receipt, the ink barely legible. Nope, that was the arrangement. I gave her the house. She gave me distance. Lisa looked at her grandmother with something between awe and grief. You're not just cleaning house, are you? No, Martha said. I'm reclaiming it. The next morning, Monique showed up with two things, a chocolate pound cake wrapped in foil and a whisper. She's off the Sunday bulletin, she said, sliding a printed schedule across the table. Pastor signed off last night. Martha's name was still there. Martha Lane, Legacy Coordinator. But Dina's name was gone. Just white space where it used to be. She noticed? Martha asked. Oh, she noticed. Monique grinned. She called me personally. Said she was being persecuted. I told her, honey, persecution don't come with notarized paperwork. Lisa laughed so hard she choked on her tea. Then came the knock. Not loud. Just firm. 3 taps, Lisa answered. At the door stood Brother Otis, a quiet man in his 70s who'd been with the church since Martha was teaching flannel graph Bible stories in the 80s. He held out a small flash drive in his hand, wrapped in tissue like it was fragile. You'll want to hear this, he said. Was recorded last month in the fellowship hall. I shouldn't have it, but the Lord put it on my heart. Martha took it without a word. Her hands were steady. What's on it? Lisa asked. Otis looked down the porch steps, then back at her. Your daughter's voice, he said. Making plans. The flash drive clicked into place like a bullet chambered. The soft whir of Martha's laptop filled the quiet living room as the file loaded, the play icon blinking once, waiting. Martha sat at the kitchen table, her spine straight, hands folded neatly around a blank notepad. Not a line written yet. The kind of silence that came before a storm, or after a betrayal. Lisa sat beside her, knees pulled up to her chest, arms wrapped tight. She didn't speak, didn't blink. Then the audio began. A door creaked, footsteps, the tinny echo of the church office metal chairs humming light fixtures. Dina's voice came through first, low but clear. It's not that I want her gone, but you've seen her lately. Wandering, forgetting things. She's not who she was. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. If we do the power of attorney quietly, she won't fight it. She trusts the church. She'll sign whatever you put in front of her. A beat of silence, then Pastor Elijah's voice, uneasy. You're talking about moving her into assisted living. It's safer for everyone. That house is a mess. She left the stove on once last year. You know how that looks? To the congregation. There was a pause. Then her voice sharpened, colder. She's dead weight, Elijah. And that property, her property, has value now. We're sitting on money we can't touch because she won't go. Lisa slapped her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. I'm not trying to be heartless. Dina added. I'm being strategic. Martha's face didn't change. Not once. Her notepad remained blank. Her tea, untouched, sat cooling beside her elbow. All I'm asking, Dina continued, is that you help me help the church. If we let her go on like this, she'll end up embarrassing herself, and all of us. Then came the final blow. It's not personal. She just needs to be moved out of the way. The recording stopped. Lisa's sob cracked the silence like thunder. She covered her face, rocking forward. She's not even ashamed. She choked. She said it like she was picking paint colors. Martha didn't move. Her eyes were glassy but dry. When she finally spoke, her voice was paper-thin and sharp as a scalpel. She sold me off with words. Pastor Elijah, standing across the room with his hands gripping the back of a dining chair, cleared his throat like he'd swallowed glass. I had no idea she recorded that meeting, he said. I didn't even want to hear it again. But when Otis passed it to me, I knew the church had to know too. I'll write a statement, he offered. Read it during Sunday announcements. Let the truth come from the pulpit. But Martha shook her head. Slowly, calmly. No, this isn't for a crowd. I don't need vindication from a microphone. Lisa blinked at her. Why not? Martha finally reached for the notepad, flipped it over and began to write. Her pen moved with the quiet fury of someone who'd waited a long time to be underestimated. Because I don't want noise, she said. I want results. She slid the notepad toward Marlon, who had sat silent throughout, reading every shift in her expression like a litigator reading jury faces. On it she'd written 3 words, cease and desist. Marlon nodded. For verbal and written defamation we can send that today, with a copy of the transcript. Lisa sniffled, wiping her face with the back of her sleeve.
That'll ruin her.
She already ruined herself, Martha replied. I'm just mailing the receipt. Just as Marlon stood to pack his briefcase, the doorbell didn't ring, but something slipped under the door. A soft whish of paper on wood. Lisa moved to pick it up, but Martha waved her off. She leaned forward and plucked the folded note off the floor. Her name was written on the front in blue ink, shaky handwriting. Too careful. She opened it. We need to talk. Privately. Dina. Martha stared at the signature for a long moment, then looked up. Now she wants privacy, she muttered. The note was folded neatly, creased like a prayer, but Martha didn't touch it again after the first read. She placed it in a plastic sleeve and slid it into the growing binder she kept beside the dining room hutch. Legal desk Dina Dor Duskard. Scrawled across the front in red Sharpie. One more document. One more receipt. Lisa hovered nearby, arms crossed, watching the ritual. You're not even going to read it again, she asked. Voice hushed like they were in a funeral home. I already did, Martha replied, not looking up. Once was more than enough. But don't you want to know what she wants now? Martha snapped the binder shut. The click echoed like a closing vault. She said what she wanted the first time, Martha said. The message was already sent. This one's just a postscript. The air in the house was thick with stillness, the kind that built when heat clung to the walls and emotion lingered in corners. The blinds were drawn halfway, letting stripes of sunlight slash across the wooden floor. Outside, a bird chirped and fell silent, as if even nature had paused to hold its breath. A knock at the back door broke the quiet. Pastor Elijah stood with a grocery bag in one hand and a soft smile. He stepped inside, setting down the bag. Collards, canned peaches, cornbread mix. I figured you might be low, he said. Been too much fire around here to do real shopping. Martha nodded, accepting the help without fanfare. You're right on time. Lisa just about cleared the pantry trying to organize my files. Lisa grinned faintly from her spot on the couch. She's rewriting her will. Pastor Elijah raised a brow. Already, Martha returned to the table, pulled out a fresh sheet of paper, and began to write in careful, deliberate script. No names this time, she said. Not yet, not until I'm done pruning. He sat down across from her, watching the pen move. There's a peace in silence too, he said. You don't have to reply to everything just because it knocks. Martha didn't respond, but her hand didn't pause either. Beside her, Lisa booted up the old scanner they'd dug out of the closet. Folders of documents lined the table: birth certificates, bank records, funeral programs. She scanned each one into a private cloud folder titled Lane Legacies. For Lisa only. Grandma, Lisa asked, not looking up, why didn't you ever teach Dina how to manage all this? The paperwork, the records, I tried, Martha said. She thought it was beneath her. Lisa pressed the scan button again. The machine hummed like a tired confession. Later that afternoon, Martha received an email from Marlon's office confirming the walkthrough for the Sycamore rental. The subject line read simply, "Scheduled property inspection. Occupant notification filed." She responded within minutes, "Confirm entry. I'll be available by phone." Expect resistance. That night she made herself a small plate chicken salad, pickles, a single butter roll. Lisa had gone back to her dorm to prepare for finals, and the house was quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet. She sat by the window with her dinner binder beside her, laptop open to a clean Word document titled Revised Will Draft 1. Her phone rang once. Unknown number. She declined it. Then the text came in. Unknown. Hi. I'm the inspector scheduled for the Sycamore property. Tried to meet the tenant just now. She left serious damage, and she's refusing to let me in. Martha put her fork down. The key didn't fit. Martha twisted it again. Slow, deliberate, as if the lock had simply aged and forgotten her. But no. The grooves weren't worn. They were replaced. She stepped back from the front door of the Sycamore rental and narrowed her eyes. The brass around the deadbolt was shiny, freshly installed, and insultingly obvious. The inspector stood beside her, shifting awkwardly on his feet. She changed it, ma'am. Said it was for her safety. Refused to open the door. I couldn't complete the walkthrough. Martha said nothing. She just reached into her handbag, pulled out her phone, and opened a note where she'd already typed the file number and address. Then she added 2 new lines. Lock changed without permission. Violation of lease terms, obstruction of inspection. Her thumb hovered for half a second before hitting send, straight to Marlon Fields. 2 hours later, the paperwork was filed. Unlawful entry and intentional property tampering. By sundown, a certified letter was en route. The next morning, a white envelope arrived at Dina's mailbox bearing Marlon's letterhead. Notice of formal eviction. Immediate grounds breach of agreement. No signature from Martha. No emotion attached. Just law. At the church, whispers bloomed like weeds. She locked her mother out? On a property that ain't even hers? She changed the locks before she changed her ways. Monique leaned in toward the group gathered after Wednesday service and murmured, "She's bold, I'll give her that. But not smart." Someone else replied, "That's how you know she's desperate." And desperation doesn't hide well in a small town. Lisa drove over that afternoon with a small tool set and a camera. She didn't try the front door, just snapped photos. The cracked trim. The splintered wood around the knob. A mailbox stuffed with unopened notices. Then she took one final shot. The lock itself, gleaming against the chipped paint like a gold tooth in a clenched mouth. She posted it that night, captioned simply, "She deserved better." No names, no accusations, but everyone knew. The post gained traction faster than expected. Shares, comments, DMs from neighbors who remembered seeing Martha mowing the lawn there last summer, alone. From parents whose kids rented from her years back. From church members with nothing nice left to say about Dina. By the end of the day, someone had left a bouquet of daisies on Martha's porch. Then a pot of gumbo. Then a lemon chess pie, still warm. Martha didn't say thank you online. She just opened her door wider. Each time someone knocked and offered them tea with whatever grace she had left to give. "You good, Miss Martha?" a teenage boy from down the street asked as he handed her a bag of groceries. "I'm always good," she said, smiling faintly, "but I'm about to be better." That Friday evening, the wind kicked up just as the sun began to dip low behind the trees. The porch light flicked on automatically, casting a warm halo over the steps. A car pulled up. Slow. Unfamiliar. Lisa looked up from the kitchen sink, saw the figure step out, and froze. Grandma. Martha came to the window. Dina's husband, Raymond, stood on the sidewalk, holding a checkbook in one hand and a manila envelope in the other. He looked uncomfortable, tugging at his collar, avoiding the camera mounted under the porch awning. He climbed the steps, knocked once. Martha opened the door halfway. Didn't speak. Raymond cleared his throat and held out the envelope. Dina doesn't know I'm here, but I'm trying to stop this from getting worse. Inside the envelope was a check. Lisa came up behind her and looked over her shoulder. It's post-dated, she said. Raymond's voice dropped. It'll clear in 2 days. She just needs time to figure things out. Martha took the check, held it to the porch light, and read it carefully. Then calmly she folded it once and placed it in her coat pocket. Not as a deposit, as evidence. The check was heavy in Martha's hand, not in weight, but in what it pretended to mean. Post-dated. No signature. No return address. It smelled faintly cologne and fear. Lisa stood at the kitchen counter, watching Martha hold it up to the sunlight again, like maybe it would say something new. Still unsigned, Lisa muttered. Still worthless. Martha slipped it into a sandwich bag, sealed it shut, and placed it in her accordion file under a new tab. Fraud. Fraud and coming. By noon the next day the bank confirmed what they already suspected. Check bounced. Account insufficient. Return initiated. Marlon didn't wait for permission. The moment the bounce was official, he filed a small claims case, attempted fraud, misrepresentation, and unlawful interference with a legal eviction. Paper trails leave footprints, he said over the phone. And this one's stomping loud. Lisa handled the next step. She spent 2 hours on hold with the Memphis utility office, then revoked Dina's authorization from the Sycamore account. She never paid it anyway, Lisa muttered as she clicked through the forms. Let her light her next lie with candles. By midweek, Martha paid a locksmith to replace every door, bolt, and latch on the rental. This time she chose a keypad lock. No keys to copy, no surprises in the mailbox. The locksmith, a young man with calloused hands and a gentle drawl, looked up after finishing. You want me to reinforce the frame too? Looks like someone's been leaning hard on this. Martha gave him a tight smile. That'd be lovely. Back at church the pews were buzzing, but not with gossip. Pastor Elijah made an announcement during Wednesday evening service. This Mother's Day, we're honoring the legacy of women who build their homes in silence and still get torn down out loud. We'll begin with Sister Martha Lane. Applause rippled through the sanctuary like waves. Martha didn't speak. She didn't stand, but her fingers curled around her purse strap, trembled ever so slightly. That weekend, a van pulled up to her driveway. 5 women from the church's hospitality circle stepped out carrying swatches of fabric, a fresh coat of ivory paint, and 3 boxes labeled curtains, lamps, photos. Monique brought them in. We figured it's time this house stopped feeling like survival, she said. It deserves to look like a sanctuary. They scrubbed the baseboards. They rearranged the living room. They rehung James's favorite picture of Martha in her wedding dress, this time centered above the fireplace. Lisa knelt by the window, tucking in a new beige curtain, when her phone buzzed. A DM. She glanced at the sender and frowned. I don't follow her. She opened the message anyway. Hi Lisa. I'm your mom's cousin Carla. We haven't met, but I have something you and your grandmother need to see. Screenshots attached. Dates included. My phone is open if you want to call. Lisa blinked and tapped the first image. It was a text conversation, from Dina. The top line made Lisa's throat tighten. If I forge the POA, she'll be out by summer. I just need someone to say she's slipping mentally. Another screenshot. Dated 2 months ago. Once she's in the care facility, I can start the sale without her stalling it. Lisa didn't speak. Her fingers trembled as she handed the phone to Martha, who had just come in from the porch. Martha read the messages slowly. No reaction on her face, but something in her posture, the angle of her shoulders, the hard line of her mouth, stiffened into steel. She didn't just lie, Lisa whispered. She plotted. Monique leaned in from the kitchen doorway. What's wrong? Lisa turned the phone to show her. Monique's eyes widened. Oh, honey, you might want to sit down before you read the rest of that thread. The messages kept coming. Lisa sat hunched at the dining room table, scrolling through the flood of screenshots while the new curtains swayed behind her in the breeze. Her hand trembled not from fear, but from the sharp awareness that truth, when delivered in pieces, stings slower than a slap. Each image from Carla, Dina's cousin, unraveled something deeper. One showed a spreadsheet titled Projected Sale Values, Lane properties with dates lined up like tombstones, months in advance. Notes scribbled beside each entry. Probate delay if mom alive, need POA finalized before Memorial Day. Talk to Elijah re cognitive decline angle. Another was a voice note transcript from Carla's phone backup. If I say she left the stove on twice, they'll believe she's slipping. You just have to back me. Once she's moved, everything gets easier. I mean, come on, it's my inheritance anyway. Lisa exhaled slowly, the breath shaky and dry. She was trying to make you disappear, she murmured. Martha sat across from her, perfectly still, hands folded around her teacup like it was holding her in place. The china trembled slightly. She wrote me off before I was gone, Martha said. Her cousin just put it in writing. Lisa printed the screenshots carefully. Each one slid into sheet protectors and organized in a binder marked E-exhibit, intent to defraud. She added a sticky note on top. Carla A. willing to testify. Marlon called before sundown. She gave you evidence. His voice had a sharpness to it, like he'd already opened a new case folder before she answered. Lisa spoke for them both. Clear intent, recorded statements. We have the messages too. Good, he replied. I'm filing for attempted elder exploitation first thing in the morning. We'll attach this to the existing civil suit. This changes everything. In the background, Martha poured herself a fresh cup of tea. Marlon continued. We'll also draft a protection order. If she even steps near your property after this, she's violating it. Lisa looked over at her grandmother. She wants it, she said. The protection order. I want clarity, Martha corrected, and closure. Pastor Elijah came by with a casserole and left with a stack of evidence. He sat at the kitchen counter, reading through the transcript Carla had sent. Each line etched deeper concern into his weathered face. She weaponized your memory, he said softly. Tried to turn your age into ammunition. He slid the paper aside. Even family, he added, can bear witness, and sometimes they should. Martha looked toward the window, where dusk was beginning to press against the glass like soft breath. She didn't expect her own cousin to speak up. Elijah nodded. That's the thing about truth. It travels fastest through silence. 2 days later, Marlon called again. The judge signed the protective order, effective immediately, and she's being served today. Lisa looked up from the kitchen sink. Where? Marlon hesitated. During Bible study. At the church. Martha didn't blink. Amen, she whispered, sipping her tea. Inside the fellowship hall that Wednesday evening, the chairs were lined up in circles, open Bibles, pastel cardigans, soft murmurs of scripture. Dina wore a royal blue blouse and glossy lipstick, her smile bright as always, until 2 court officers stepped through the doors and asked for her by full name. Gasps rippled through the room. She turned slowly, confusion bending her brow. What's this? They didn't explain, just handed her the envelope. Lisa, watching from the side hallway, leaned back and whispered into her phone. It's done. The folding chairs were the same. So were the hymnals, still a little sticky from last Sunday's potluck punch. But this service didn't begin with music. It began with a woman standing at the front of the prayer room, older than the paint on the walls, steady as the steeple outside. Martha Lane. No script in her hand, no podium between her and the rows of expectant faces. Just her, standing beneath soft fluorescent lights, and an old ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. Some of y'all know what I've been through, she began. Others heard it secondhand. I'm not here to retell it. She paused. I'm here to outlive it. Silence. Then a single amen from the second row. Another. Then another. Martha smiled, just barely. Her voice didn't shake. I led this group for 30 years. I taught your kids, rocked your grandbabies in the nursery, fed some of y'all after funerals I prayed through. I've been in the shadows for a long time, but shadows don't erase the light. She folded her hands and bowed her head. Let's pray. What followed wasn't a speech, it was a reckoning. Each word soaked in dignity, soaked in survival. She prayed for clarity, for resilience, for wisdom passed down like recipes. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. By the time she opened her eyes, the room was on its feet. A standing ovation in the prayer room, not clapping for victory, clapping because she was still there. In the back, Dina stood stiffly, her mouth tight, arms crossed over her chest. She didn't speak. She didn't clap. She avoided eye contact as whispers bloomed behind her like dandelions. That's her. Can you believe she came back here? She's got gall, I'll give her that. She slipped out quietly, through the side exit. Martha didn't even glance in her direction. Later that week, Pastor Elijah made an announcement during morning service. In honor of those who paved the way and held this church up when no one was looking, we're building something permanent. He turned toward the screen behind him, where the slideshow clicked forward to an image of an open garden design. Roses, benches, a plaque. Legacy Garden, honoring James and Martha Lane, for their unshakable roots. Gasps. Applause. A few hands over hearts. Lisa stood in the second pew, blinking hard. Martha simply bowed her head. After the service, Lisa approached Pastor Elijah with her name already written on the volunteer list. I'll help with planning and maintenance. He smiled. Just like your grandma. Back at home, Martha prepared a manila envelope with a short typed letter and 2 attached notices. She sealed it carefully. The recipient was Dina's landlord, the one who still owned the building after Dina defaulted on 2 separate agreements and hadn't paid full rent in months. The envelope contained a formal release of Property Association notice of eviction from Sycamore Drive, final and irrevocable. Martha included no explanation. She'd learned by now some things didn't need one. That night, Lisa scrolled through her phone while folding laundry when she froze. Grandma, she said carefully, you need to see this. She turned the screen. Dina had posted a photo, an old family shot from a Thanksgiving dinner years ago, with James at the head of the table, Martha mid-laugh. The caption read, "Family should stay quiet, especially when old, no names, no context." But everyone knew. Martha read it, then looked away. She still thinks silence is surrender, she said softly. Lisa closed the app. She's about to find out otherwise. Lisa read the post twice before saying a word. The bitterness in the caption wasn't what shocked her. It was the smile in the old photo. That long ago Thanksgiving table with James slicing turkey and Martha laughing at something just out of frame had been twisted into a weapon. The image of warmth, stolen by the same woman who'd tried to erase it. Family should stay quiet, especially when old. The comments were already filling up with confused reactions, a few defensive friends but mostly silence. Even the people who once smiled politely at Dina's church brunches now hesitated to like or defend a message like that. Lisa didn't hesitate. She tapped screenshot, then tapped again. Then on her own page she posted, "My grandmother doesn't need to clap back. She's got court documents for that. Filed. Shelby County Civil Court. Case hash 2025 EA 319. Elder exploitation, defamation, unlawful retaliation. Let the truth breathe. Hash receipts over rumors. Hash dignity deserves defense." She didn't tag Dina. She didn't need to. Within minutes, her post spread through the Memphis community faster than Dina's had. Congregation members reposted it. Former renters of the Sycamore House chimed in with praise for Martha. Even strangers from neighboring churches left supportive comments. This woman taught Sunday school to half this town. Respect her. We saw the garden dedication. She's legacy, not liability. This is what generational strength looks like. Meanwhile, at Marlon's office, The final version of Martha's will was signed and filed. Legally, Lisa was named the sole heir, executor, beneficiary, and decision-maker for every Lane asset. No contests, no appeals pending. Marlon sent the confirmation email with a subject line that said simply, "Legacy secured." Martha read it with her glasses low on her nose. "About time," she said, as if she'd been waiting her whole life to hear those two words. 2 days later, the Sycamore Drive property was fully repossessed. Marlon personally oversaw the handoff of the legal repossession notice. A locksmith was on site. Dina wasn't. The house, left half empty and sour with the scent of mildew and scorched grease, was Martha's again. Lisa walked through it with a clipboard and her phone flashlight, documenting every warped floorboard and stained counter. She tried to sell it like she owned it, she muttered. Marlon, not looking up from his notes, replied, "Now we list it properly. You call the shots." That afternoon, another envelope was filed, an extension of the court-issued restraining order. This one had teeth. Dina was barred not only from Martha's home but from the church, the rental property, and any public venue where Martha was scheduled to appear. The judge had signed it with a note, "Ongoing risk to safety and emotional well-being." Pastor Elijah folded the news into his Bible and quietly passed it to Martha during Sunday service. No one said a word. But in the pews behind her, Monique whispered to her neighbor, "Sometimes the Lord writes in legalese." The following Monday, the local news station, WMC5, reached out. They'd seen Lisa's post, heard the whispers, then verified the case number through court records. Subject line, "Interview request." Story on elder abuse and dignity restoration. Marlon forwarded the email to Martha with a single line, "You've got a press interview request. Want to decline or define it?" Martha looked at Lisa across the table, her tea cooling between them. The light from the window painted soft shadows on her hands, hands that had held this family together far longer than anyone gave them credit for. She didn't answer immediately, but her expression shifted, just enough to suggest she wasn't finished talking. The lights weren't as harsh as Martha expected. They were soft, warm, almost forgiving. She sat in a straight-backed chair in the local news studio. A lavalier mic clipped carefully to her blouse, the anchor offering a polite smile from across the camera setup. Behind the glass, Lisa stood with her arms folded, watching every second. Her grandmother had declined hair and makeup. "I'm not dressing up for justice," Martha had said. "I'm just showing up." The segment was live to tape, but nothing about Martha's tone felt rehearsed. Her voice was steady, low-weathered like old oak. Her hands rested in her lap. She didn't fidget. She didn't blink too long. "I wasn't trying to be a story," she said in response to the first question. "I was trying to be left alone in peace." The anchor leaned in, respectful. "You've become the face of something larger. Elder abuse, financial manipulation, inheritance theft, things most families keep quiet about. What made you respond publicly?" Martha gave a small smile. "My daughter sent a message. She thought it'd go to someone else. But it came to me, and I believe in answering people directly." The interviewer paused. "Did you ever consider just staying silent?" "I did," Martha said. "For about 12 minutes. Laughter rippled behind the camera. But Martha didn't join in. Her face softened instead. And she went on, "I gave my whole life to service. My husband did too. We worked hard, lived modest. We put our faith in people. So when someone you raise looks you in the eye, or sends you a message, and calls you a burden, you either wither from that, or you stand." The anchor nodded, struck. "What gave you the strength to stand?" Martha turned slightly, looking past the camera to where Lisa stood, silent and still. Her granddaughter gave her the smallest nod. "Legacy," Martha said. "And memory. I don't want my last chapter written by someone who never read the book." The segment ran 12 minutes. They closed with a soft pan over the Legacy Garden rendering. A voiceover summarized the situation with compassion but clarity. "Shelby County's own Martha Lane reminds us what quiet dignity looks like in the face of betrayal. and what happens when a message meant to erase someone ends up amplifying them instead. By the time Martha and Lisa returned home, the front porch was covered. Roses, daisies, envelopes, postcards. One child had drawn a picture of Martha as a superhero in glasses and pearls. A woman from a church 2 towns over dropped off a basket of preserves and a handwritten note that read, "You are who I want to become if the world ever turns against me." The next Sunday, Pastor Elijah stood at the pulpit with his voice cracking for the first time in years. He held up a printed copy of Martha's interview transcript, eyes scanning it slowly. "This," he said, one hand pressed to his chest, "is what survival looks like." He didn't need to say her name. The congregation stood before he even finished the sentence. Later that day, Lisa scrolled through her messages while Martha folded laundry nearby. She paused. "Grandma." Martha looked up. "It's Cheryl," Lisa said. "Dina's old friend. The one who helped her with the assisted living paperwork. She just posted publicly that she's cutting ties. Said, if you try to erase the people who gave you everything, you end up with nothing." Martha folded a towel slowly, a crease precise down the middle. "That's one less mouth feeding her story," she said. The news clip was reposted by national outlets later that week. Martha didn't watch those versions. She didn't care for the headlines. But the final line of the original segment, the one that aired on WMC5, stuck with her. "Texted to the wrong woman, but answered by the right one." Lisa played it back twice, just to hear it again. She turned to Martha after. "You hear that?" Martha gave the faintest of nods. Clear as day, the scent of roasted rosemary chicken filled the air, rich and grounding, the kind of smell that clung to memories. Fresh cornbread rested in a wicker basket, steam curling upward like a blessing. The table had been set with care, china polished, cloth napkins folded into quiet fans, and a place card at every setting handwritten in Martha's strong cursive. But there were only 6: Lisa, Monique, Pastor Elijah, Brother Otis, Sister Geneva, and Martha. No Dina. No hesitation. Martha didn't mention her. She didn't have to. At the head of the table, next to the chair James once filled, hung a framed photo. Him and Martha on the church lawn, his arm wrapped tight around her shoulders, both laughing as if they didn't know the camera was watching. She rested one hand on the back of that chair before sitting, not with grief, but with reverence. Lisa helped ladle sweet tea into mason jars, while Monique passed the greens, humming something between a hymn and a freedom song. "This table," Pastor Elijah said between bites, "feels like it's been waiting to exist." Martha smiled. "Some tables aren't for repairing. Some you just rebuild." There was laughter, clinking silverware, a comfort that didn't pretend everything was perfect, but made peace with what was present. After dinner, Martha tapped her glass softly with the edge of her fork. "I've got something," she said, "for the one who held me up when I didn't even know I was leaning." She turned to Lisa, eyes shining with the kind of gratitude that doesn't need to be spoken. Lisa's eyes widened as Martha pulled a small velvet box from her pocket. Inside was a gold locket, delicate oval, etched with the initials LRL in script. Lisa opened it to find a tiny picture of the Legacy Garden blueprint on one side and a sliver of parchment on the other. A typed line in crisp font, Clause 13B, Inheritance Clause Amendment, Lisa Renee Lane, full discretionary stewardship of the Lane estate, 2025. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. "I thought, Grandma, are you sure?" Martha nodded. "You earned what others thought they deserved." Tears welled, but didn't fall. Lisa clasped the locket shut and leaned in to hug her grandmother, resting her forehead against Martha's temple. Monique wiped her eyes behind a napkin. "If that's not a holy moment, I don't know what is." The next morning, the church installed the bench. It sat at the edge of the new Legacy Garden, under a sugar maple tree, the bark just beginning to flake in the spring air. The plaque on the bench read, "For James and Martha Lane, roots that held through every storm." Lisa watched from a distance as Martha sat on it for the first time, her hands folded in her lap, the breeze gently lifting her hair. Dina didn't come. No calls, no letters, no noise. Martha didn't mention her. Later that afternoon, Monique stopped by with a lemon cake and sat on the porch steps while Martha rocked slowly in her chair. You ever think about forgiving her? Monique asked. Martha stared out toward the hydrangeas, blooming again like nothing had happened. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, she said softly. It's fencing off the damage. Monique nodded. And planting something better in its place. That evening, after everyone had gone and the dishes were done, Lisa handed Martha a small wooden box wrapped in navy ribbon. What's this? Martha asked. Lisa smiled. Something I had made. Martha peeled back the ribbon and opened the lid. Inside, resting on black velvet, was a glass frame. Inside it, the printed screenshot of that text message. Why is she still alive? This would all be easier. Beneath it, engraved in gold, delivered. Answered. Survived. Martha's breath caught for a moment. Then she whispered, You sealed it. Lisa nodded. I preserved the evidence. You wrote the ending. The letter began with a date Martha would never live to see. April 9th, 2085. She wrote it at her kitchen table, the same place where she had once stared down a 13-word text that changed everything. Her pen moved in slow, practiced strokes, the cursive steady, elegant. To my great-grandchildren, if you're reading this, then time has done its work. So did I. Beside her sat a thick envelope. Inside it, a printed transcript of her WMC5 interview, a laminated copy of her final will, and the creased church bulletin from the Sunday they unveiled the legacy garden. At the bottom of the stack, she placed a photograph, her and Lisa seated together on the garden bench, heads bowed in laughter, sunlight cutting across their shoulders. She sealed it with wax, stamped it for family only, do not discard. Lisa would know when to open it, or pass it on. Martha didn't write the letter in bitterness. She wrote it in blueprint. For every child who might one day wonder if silence equals weakness. For every woman who feared being erased by the very people they raised. The next day, Lisa walked into the Shelby County Clerk's office, carrying a folder labeled the Dignity Endowment application packet. She wore her grandmother's locket, its gold catching the morning light. The fund had one purpose: to offer scholarships to students raised by grandparents, those who knew the weight of intergenerational care, of stories passed down through struggle. I want to make sure this name doesn't just rest in granite, Lisa told the woman at the desk. I want it to move forward. She left the building with the first approval form in hand. The name on it read Martha Renee Lane Memorial Scholarship for Resilience and Family Stewardship. Meanwhile, at the courthouse, the final order came through. Dina Lane is permanently barred from all estate claims, residential access, and church board appointments pertaining to the Lane family or its assets. Marlon called Martha that afternoon. It's done, he said. No loopholes, no appeals. Martha didn't gloat. She simply asked, You save a final copy for the record? I did, he said. Labeled it exactly how we discussed. Inside a fireproof cabinet in Marlon Fields' office. A slim folder now sat between two thick legal binders. The title typed in bold black font, The Wrong Message, Made Right. Pastor Elijah announced his retirement 2 Sundays later. The sanctuary was full, the air humming with sentiment, but he had one final announcement before he stepped down. He walked slowly down the center aisle to the church garden, followed by the full congregation. Martha stood near the edge, Lisa beside her, the wind teasing the edge of her cardigan. Elijah turned to the crowd. I've prayed in many places, he said, but I've never seen anything holier than a woman refusing to be erased. He removed the old plaque at the base of the garden and replaced it with a new one, etched in bronze, the Martha R. Lane Legacy Garden, for the woman who turned silence into strength. Martha said nothing, but her fingers brushed across the plaque once, slowly. Lisa caught her wiping her eye when she thought no one was looking. Later that evening, they sat together on the porch, sipping warm cider. Lisa handed her grandmother a new journal, its cover dark leather, untouched. Got anything else you want to leave behind? Lisa asked. Martha opened the journal to the first page, pulled out her pen, and wrote only one sentence. She sent a message too soon. I answered it on time. She closed the book, leaned back in her chair, and let the dusk settle over the garden she'd rebuilt, root by root, line by line, word by word.